Jump right into it here, Matthew. We start with the quarterbacks and tight ends ranked 1 through 12. Josh Allen at number 1, no surprise there. Jalen Hurts, a former ride or die, at number 2. 3, Patrick Mahomes. 4, Lamar Jackson. 5, Anthony Richardson, healthy and ready to roll in Shane Steichen's offense. 6, C.J. Stroud, the offensive rookie of the year. 7, a now healthy Kyler Murray with a new weapon in Marvin Harrison Jr. 8, Joe Burrow. 9, Jordan Love, the ascending Jordan Love. 10, Dak Prescott, a guy that was one of the best quarterbacks across a long stretch of fantasy last year. 11, the rookie, future Hall of Famer, Jaden Daniels of your Washington Commanders. And 12, Brock Purdy. I nailed that, right, Matthew?
You did.
Yeah, you love to see it. All right, let's jump in. Let's start right at the top there with Josh Allen, because the biggest theme with quarterbacks every year, Matthew, is just when do you take one? What do you invest in this position? How early are you comfortable taking your top quarterback in fantasy this year?
So I have Josh Allen at the moment at 35 overall. Of course, all my ranks available for free at rotoworld.com. My top 200, all my positional ranks as well. We're just doing the top 12 at each position because yesterday we talked sort of strategy. We didn't get to a lot of these guys, but we're going to talk about. But if you want to see all the positional ranks, obviously they're 100% free on rotoworld.com. I'm a company man. Josh Allen is the number 1 quarterback for me. He's the number 1 quarterback in the industry. He's the consensus number 1. Makes no mistake, right? Because listen, he's been at least a top 2 fantasy quarterback each of the last 4 seasons. Proud fantasy life investor Josh Allen had more games of 20-plus points than any other player, right? He had 13 games that were 3 more than any other player. So high ceiling, high floor, obviously a threat with both his arm and his legs. Josh Allen, the number 1 quarterback in fantasy. But to answer your question directly, I'm at 35 overall, which is basically, kind of depending on the size of your league, it's into the 3rd, it's top of the 4th, somewhere around there. That's where I'm comfortable because I think he is so elite. I think he provides such, not only a high floor, but also a high ceiling in any given week. He has week winning upside. So into the 3rd, top of the 4th is around where I'm comfortable taking Josh Allen. Obviously, if you're in a 1 quarterback league, if you're in a 2 quarterback league, he's a 1st round pick.
Jay, a quarterback that has QB1, potential to finish as QB1 is Lamar Jackson. Now, you've been early to carry the Derrick Henry flag this year. So somebody you would think has to kind of suffer in rushing production there. Is it going to be Lamar Jackson with Derrick Henry being such a goal line presence, or can Lamar just kind of carry things on his own even with him there?
I think the people who are going to suffer are more your Justice Hills of the world, and in previous iterations of the Ravens, the guys will be filling the Melvin Gordon, Kenyon Drake type of role. So I think Henry will take more from them. I think with Lamar, there's 2 competing things. One is that last year he was fully healthy the whole season, which is not usually the expectation for Lamar Jackson. You expect that he will miss a couple of games by getting banged up, as he tends to. And then the other thing, though, is that the Ravens were just leading games all of last year. And we didn't have those crazy Lamar games where it's 150 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns and he just wins you a week. He wasn't consistently doing that because they were just always ahead. And I think that just naturally regression should mean that there are going to be more situations this year where they're behind and he needs to be dropping back and doing Lamar stuff more. So overall, I think that there are worlds absolutely where he could be QB1, no doubt about it, Lamar Jackson, but I think right now being 4 kind of hits that middle ground because he is more of an injury risk than guys like, even though Allen takes a lot of hits, he just doesn't get hurt. He doesn't miss time ever, whereas Lamar has previously.
Yeah, there's a lot of positives to Lamar Jackson. Obviously, he averages 20 points a game, at least 750 rushing yards every season. He's been a starter 5 straight years as well. But last year, he just wasn't running when we got into the red zone, right? Under 20% of the team's goal line carries last week. That was also a career low. And so I think the concern about, if last year they weren't using him, last year was the first year of Todd Monken, and last year was his worst year as a goal line carrier, as an option, as a rusher around the goal line. He's their franchise quarterback. They're paying him a ton of money. So they want to, and he's somebody that had dealt with injuries throughout his career. So they're trying to say, listen, we don't need to be, jamming you into the pile. So obviously now that they have Derrick Henry, you have to figure that's not a number that's going up. When they get in close, he had 19% and might go even down. Having said that, it's the 2nd year of Todd Monken's offense. I agree with Jay. I think they're probably not going to be, they may be down a little bit more. 2nd year of Zay Flowers. He should have Mark Andrews fully healthy for the entire year as well. So I think that the weird part about Lamar Jackson is that he had like a handful of games last year where it was just like he had like 12 points because they just scored rushing touchdowns that weren't him. Again, 20 rushing touchdowns by running backs last year as well. But for me, I'm just banking on talent. I believe in the Todd Monken scheme. I like the players around him. Obviously, we talked about Andrews and Flowers, but I'm a big Isaiah Likely fan as well. They continue to get production out of, Nelson Aguilar. We'll see Rashad Bateman. Hope springs eternal with him. But the fact of the matter is that he's always going to be a big runner. I don't know that you can count on a ton of rushing touchdowns for him, but this is somebody that has led the NFL in passing before, and so he's my running back for. I have him sort of into the basically around the fifth as a fifth runner. I'm at 48 overall, right? So sort of mid to into the fifth round for me in terms of where I'm taking him in the overall.
Obviously, guys, the rushing component is a big reason why Allen and Lamar are in the top 5. Now we move to a different tier for two quarterbacks that don't bring the rushing component but are prolific passers. That's Joe Burrow at QB8, which, Jay, is very interesting because you have C.J. Stroud at 6. When you look at the passing upside of both these guys, it's not that different. Is there a little bit of a baked-in injury discount for Burrow this year because of what happened last year?
I think so. And I think as well the fact that if you want to compare Burrow to Stroud just plays in a dome, which is such a big advantage here. And the fact that Burrow has to play outdoors against the defenses of three of the best defenses in the NFL, we expect in Baltimore, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh in the AFC North, having to play those teams 6 times, that hurts. Now, I think the bull case for Joe Burrow is that it's just 2022. You just roll that season out again where he finished as QB4 in points per game and total points. And I think that's totally realistic. He just probably doesn't quite have the upside of other guys who can add perhaps a little bit more with their legs. And also Burrow, for a pocket passer, does get hurt. Like, there have been 2 of his 4 seasons in the NFL. He's played 10 games, tore the ACL in 2020, and then last year just dealing with an assortment of injuries between the season-ending one and then the calf strain he was dealing with early. And I do think with Burrow, I think he is an elevated injury risk, Connor, just because he takes so many sacks.
Yeah, there's no doubt. He holds the ball. The line has gotten better over the years, but it's been a problem in the past. Obviously, there's some changes on this offensive staff now with Brian Callahan being in Tennessee. Matthew, this is an interesting one because this is a team that kind of lost their workhorse running back in Joe Mixon. They have plenty of talented wide receivers that are looking to earn top dollar, which those contract years can be kind of a bonus. How do you project Burrow in that case with so many different variables attached to him?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the fact of the matter is we all like C.J. Stroud, but again, if you're going to go with a pocket passer, why not get a Joe Burrow or a Brock Purdy a few rounds later, which is what you can do there. And so Burrow comes in, as you mentioned, QB8 for me. I think that Jay has hit it on the head, which is that the upside is there for him to be a top 5 fantasy quarterback. We've seen it before. We've seen it recently, 2021. The issue is that that the path for him to do that is much more narrow, right? I mean, the path for him to become a top 5 fantasy quarterback just means he's got to throw 35 touchdowns, 35 to 40 touchdowns. He's got to be 4,500 yards, if not more, because he just doesn't give you that much with his feet. And you mentioned it. He lost Joe Mixon. He lost Tyler Boyd. I know people are like, whatever, Tyler Boyd. But the fact is that those are 2 veterans that knew this offense very well. And they're going to be replaced at running back. It's going to be, probably Chase Brown, some Zach Moss. The 2 new guys there in the backfield. I mean, Chase Brown was there last year, but, is a young player. And then, at the slot, maybe it's Jermaine Burton, maybe it's Andre Ishavas. We don't know. But it's a new surrounding cast for him as well. T. Higgins down year last year for him. We talked about him yesterday. We think he's going to bounce back, but that's not a guarantee as well. So I just love Joe Burrow, proud fantasy life investor Joe Burrow. But the fact is that as a pocket passer, his path to being an elite fantasy option, a top 5 option, is more narrow, which is why I have a guy like Kyler Murray ahead of him. Why I think that honestly, I want to see one more preseason game, but if Jaden Daniels looks like he did in week 1 and week 2, I'm going to move Jaden Daniels up there to 8. I just think the rushing upside that you get, I think you could make a strong argument that Jordan Love should be ahead of Joe Burrow. Like, he's right there with some of those guys. Again, pure NFL quarterback talent-wise, Joe Burrow's as good as there is in the NFL. But fantasy-wise, just because the lack of rushing and the narrow path that he has to becoming an elite fantasy option compared with some of the guys that are dual threat is why he's towards the end of the top 10 quarterbacks.
Guys, when we get a chance, let's take one more look at Matthew's top 12 quarterbacks. And as we get there, Matthew, I'll toss to you. When you look at this group, how are you prioritizing this position? This is a year where you're taking one early and you're just steadfast about it? We've talked in the past, I believe a couple months ago, that, hey, this might be a year where I like an upside play in the middle to late tiers, but I also like a floor play where I'm taking two quarterbacks, but I might be doing it in later rounds. Where do you stand as people begin to really start their draft season?
Yeah, it's a good mention because today is Draft Day Manifesto Day. So the Draft Day Manifesto comes out. It'll be up on rotoworld.com. I think by the time this posts, it should be out, or if not, it'll be coming very shortly. So check out rotoworld.com for the Draft Day Manifesto 2024 edition, 100% free, of course. I'm a company man. And I addressed this in a big way in that article. But very simply, I want a rushing quarterback. I mean, it's not rocket science here. And so it just sort of depends on what your league type is. Are you in a 10-team league? Are you in a 14-team league? Are you playing one quarterback? Are you playing two? How deep are your rosters, as well? Like if it's a standard 10-team, like if it's an ESPN league where it's 10 teams, two running backs, two wide receivers, then you can wait a little longer on quarterback. If you're in a 14-team super flex, then not at all. But ultimately, I want one of these elite guys. I want one of the guys that you just saw in the top 12. I think that you need a rushing quarterback. Most of the guys in my 12, in fact, all the guys in my top 12 are one of two things. They're either dual threat quarterbacks or they have a path to 35 to 40 touchdown passes and well over 4,000 passing yards, right? The Strouds, the Dak Prescotts, the Burrows of the world, right? Everyone else uses their legs if you look at that top 12. And so for me, I want one of those guys. I want an elite guy. I want a guy that can get me points, massive points with his arm, or a dual threat.
Yeah, I think for me personally, if I'm not getting one of the top four guys, and I view them, Allen, Hurts, Mahomes, and Lamar as the clear top four, if I'm not getting one of them, instead of taking Dak Prescott at like pick 67 where he's going on Yahoo, or Joe Burrow at pick 57, I'd rather just punt it and just wait until taking like Trevor Lawrence at pick 123, right, Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford, pick 128. Even like Geno Smith was not elite. He was a very good fantasy option in 2022, fell off a bit last year. Like he's going as like QB 28. Like I'm not sure that the gap there is a gap clearly, but I'm not sure it's quite that big to warrant taking someone like Prescott or Joe Burrow super early when they don't have the rushing upside.
Let's move.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotoWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest RotoWorld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.